Where was Jesus from? Jesus of Nazareth. There's the story of Nazareth, Jesus of Nazareth, and repeated many, many times in the New Testament. Recent archaeological evidence has come up that very strongly points to the idea that Nazareth didn't even exist at that time. So how could Jesus be from Nazareth? It turns out that there is one point where it all starts. And it turns out it's in Judges, and I'll read the quote first. And here the prophet is talking to a woman. Because you will conceive and give birth to a son, no razor may be used on his head, because the boy is to be a Nazarite, set apart to God from birth. And he will begin the deliverance of Israel from the hands of the Philistines. So who was ever writing the story of Jesus, he's looking through what they called the scripture at the time, trying to find events that he could fulfill in the prophecy, in the story that he's writing about Jesus. So he finds this event. He says, Nazarite, I've heard about this town called Nazareth. I'll just make it the same. So he writes later on that he has Joseph going to Nazareth, thus fulfilling the words of the prophets. Well, Nazareth is not mentioned, but the word Nazarite is. So we can see that he got this slightly confused. Nazarite, Nazareth, not much difference, but it is definitely different phrases, different concepts. Later on, they also get it further confused with a group of Nazarenes, which were a subset of the Essenes. At some points, they have Jesus being a Nazarene. Sometimes they have Paul being a Nazarene. Nazarene, Nazareth, Nazarite. They're all getting mixed up and confused. So it shows how tenuous this was. As I mentioned, every day, most of us have dreams at night. And we get up in the morning, we try to decide, was that dream real or wasn't it? We look around, we try to determine what is reality in our world. So what can we really use to determine the evidence for anything in this world? And I maintain we only have two things. We have empirical, verifiable evidence, and we have logic. With those, we've been very good in science in determining how the real world works. So that's what I'm going to use to determine the existence or non-existence of God. I've talked about evil that happens in this world. We all know that it is. And that's one of the biggest failings for the Christian God, who's defined as being omnibenevolent, all-loving. Because how could a loving being cause or allow to happen any sort of the terrible events that really do happen in all our lives? Some people will say, well, he's merely trying to teach us. He killed hundreds of thousands of people in a tsunami. He killed all these people in an earthquake. That's supposed to teach us something. I find that to be abysmal. Any kind of teaching that kills off people, any kind of morality that allows babies to be born with horrible diseases, that allows people to get truly horrible diseases, I find completely immoral. We have relatively few processes that people use to determine that God exists. Some people say that mysticism and revelation prove that God exists. That some people are somehow mystics or they have revelation. Well, I think that those merely happen in their minds, and have no external relevance to us. They could sound very useful, but they don't really matter to us in the world. Then there are the scientific claims that we've already heard to a great degree. There's the first cause, a cosmological argument. There's the argument from intelligent design, from design called the teleological argument. Part of that is intelligent design, creationism, irreducible complexity, and the origin of consciousness. Then we have love and morality, appeals to authority, prophecy and miracles, and appeals to faith, logic, and emotion. So let's take a look at these one by one. We like to come up with stories for events. Where did the universe come from? Where did I come from? And the biggest one is, of course, where did the universe come from? We have excellent evidence, as has been pointed out, that the universe started at a particular point. Now, we have scientific evidence that goes back to an extremely small fraction of a second after that gives us an understanding of how this came into being. Now, we may not know exactly the very beginning, but that doesn't mean that God did it, any more than God used to control lightning. And as we all know, people used to think that God caused lightning. So this is called the God of the gaps. The idea is that since we don't know something, God must have done it. And I think that's a logical failure. Then there's the argument from design. We look around the world, it looks designed. We have animals using oxygen and creating carbon dioxide. We have plants using carbon dioxide and creating oxygen. But it just merely looks designed because of the long process of evolution that we've seen come into being. As I like to point out, it looks like the sun does indeed go around the earth. Every day, that's what it looks like. It's only through science that we understand, and through excellent basis, that the earth is indeed going around the sun. We have love and morality. I think morality comes from each one of us. The reason we have morality is because that's how we exist as human beings. No God tells us, I don't think, what to do. Even if we were to say that God were to tell us, the Bible is full of God's causing all sorts of slaughters and disease. I think that we love because that's how we survive. Parents love their children, parents love each other. That definitely increases their odds on survival. Any parents that don't love each other or don't love their children are much less likely to survive or have their offspring survive. Appeals to authority, I think, fall flat. That's just somebody else telling us that something's true. That has no basis at all. Prophecy and miracles. The evidence for miracles are slim at best. All we have are stories of people saying that this happened. We have no idea who told the stories. We have no way to test them. We have appeals to faith, logic, and emotion. These are very big. We're very emotional beings. But faith and emotion prove nothing other than people's faith. A couple of classic recent examples are the Heaven's Gate group and the Jim Jones catastrophes, where people had such strong faith that they were willing to kill themselves. I think that proves nothing. So my point is that there's no need for a God to explain the universe. We have excellent scientific evidence that shows how it came into being that I'll probably get to later. It takes a little while to explain. I've shown how the God is logically inconsistent. I'm going backwards, I'm sorry. Okay, so many of you probably don't believe in evolution. From my experience, a lot of Christians don't. The evidence for evolution is overwhelming. We have a fossil record, we have the genetic record. This happens to be a really interesting character called Tiktaalik that was recently discovered up in northern Canada. Tiktaalik is the first evidence we have of an animal with a neck and a separate head, of bones and a leg that eventually became, actually they can trace down through time how these bones became the bones in our wrists and our ankles. Here's a famous half bird, half reptile that was found called Optiotrix. It was found about 1859, shortly after Darwin came out with The Origin of Species. The human eye is largely thought of as a very complex, but it wasn't perfectly designed, as we all can tell from those of us who have to wear glasses. It's very complex, and here light comes down from the top, and it's not really noted until lower in the case. So the light has to go down until it hits the photoreceptors at the bottom. It's not intelligently designed. We all know this. This shows the evidence of evolution from man that they've shown up. Here's the different skulls of human beings. I like this picture right here. This is an astounding picture. It's a whirlpool galaxy. I find space astounding. This is the deep field universe, the deep field image from Hubble telescope. Each one of those spots on there is a separate galaxy, much like ours, with hundreds of billions of stars, possibly with other intelligent beings on them. Thank you very much.